I woke up in a hospital room disoriented and in excruciating pain, my hair matted with dried blood. The last thing I remembered was Cassandra slamming her bedroom door during our argument, the decorative glass panel shattering above me. Doctors rushed around, attaching monitors and speaking in urgent tones. In the corner, my parents huddled together, whispering frantically. Their faces showed not concern, but unmistakable fear. When Mom noticed my eyes open, she hurried over, leaning close to my ear. "Tell them you fell down the stairs," she whispered. "Completely. Your father's job depends on it." I slipped back into darkness, her words making no sense at all. 3 weeks earlier, I had moved back into my childhood home in Cedar Falls after my divorce from Derek was finalized. At 28, returning home felt like failure, but I needed to save money while job hunting. My teaching position had been eliminated in budget cuts, and the divorce had drained what little savings we had. "It's only temporary," I told myself as I unpacked in my old bedroom now, a guest room with pale blue walls instead of the purple I'd chosen as a teenager. The first sign of trouble came at dinner that night. My sister Cassandra, now 21, and in her final semester of college as an education major, rolled her eyes when Mom mentioned extending my stay through the summer. "Great," she muttered. Just when I finally got the bathroom to myself. Cassandra, my father Thomas warned, though, without much force. Dad had been principal at Cedar Falls High School for 15 years. He was well-respected, firm but fair with students, yet oddly permissive with Cassandra. What? Cassandra snapped. "It's not like she planned this well. Maybe if she'd picked a better husband or kept her job, she wouldn't need to crash here." Mom cleared her throat. "Amanda," she corrected herself, "we're happy to have Lori home for as long as she needs." I knew that wasn't entirely true. Mom worked as the school board secretary and was obsessed with appearances. Having a divorced, unemployed daughter back home didn't fit the perfect family image she cultivated at church and community events. That night I heard Cassandra on the phone in her room. "No, you can't come over. Because my sister's back. I know it sucks." Well, she lost her job and Derek dumped her. No, the other way around, but we all know the truth. I walked away, my cheeks burning. Cassandra had always been this way, sweet when our parents were watching, vicious when they weren't. Growing up, she'd break my things, then cry when I got upset, making me look like the bully. As the baby of the family, she'd perfected manipulation early. The next morning, I woke early to use the bathroom before Cassandra's typically long shower. When I returned to my room, my phone was slightly askew on the nightstand. I'd been careful to keep it face-down, screen-locked. Paranoid, perhaps, but something felt off. Later that day, I went for a job interview at a private school across town. When I returned, Cassandra was in the kitchen with a man whose back was to me. When he turned, my stomach dropped. Lori Scott Jenkins, said, his familiar smile spreading across his face. Wow, it's been, 10 years? Scott had been my high school boyfriend until senior year when I caught him cheating with a sophomore. Now he stood in my parents' kitchen, his arm casually around my sister's waist. "Scott teaches math at Dad's school," Cassandra explained with a smug smile. "We've been dating for 6 months. "Congratulations," I managed, though the coincidence seemed deliberately cruel. Of all the men in town, she'd chosen someone from my past. "Scott's mentoring me during my student teaching," Cassandra added. "Dad arranged it." Dad appeared in the doorway. "Scott's one of our best young teachers. On track for department head next year." That night I couldn't sleep. The situation felt orchestrated to make me uncomfortable, to remind me of past failures while highlighting Cassandra's success. Around midnight, I went downstairs for water. Cassandra's phone sat on the counter, lighting up with a text notification. I shouldn't have looked, but something compelled me. The message preview from Scott read, "Did you get the answers for tomorrow's certification exam section?" Your dad said. I froze. Teacher certification exams were strictly controlled. Helping someone cheat could end careers. I tapped the phone, expecting it to be locked, but it opened to a conversation revealing that Cassandra was helping Scott cheat on his advanced certification exams that would qualify him for the department head position. Worse, it appeared, my father was involved, providing access to test materials through his administrative credentials. I set the phone down exactly as I'd found it, my mind racing. This wasn't just about Cassandra dating my ex to hurt me. This was professional misconduct that could destroy my father's reputation and career if discovered. and somehow I was now entangled in their secret. For 2 days I wrestled with what I'd discovered. If the certification fraud came to light, my father could lose his job. Cassandra would never get her teaching license and Scott would be fired. The scandal would devastate my family and ripple through our small community where my father was respected and my mother served on multiple committees. Yet saying nothing made me complicit in their dishonesty. What kind of teachers would Cassandra and Scott be if they started their careers through cheating? What message was my father sending by helping them? The integrity of education itself was at stake. On Thursday afternoon, I was alone in the house when Cassandra returned from campus. The moment she saw me sitting at the kitchen island, her expression shifted from surprise to suspicion. "What are you doing home? Thought you had another interview." "It was rescheduled," I replied, watching her carefully. "Cassandra, we need to talk." She dropped her backpack on a chair. "About what?" "I saw your texts with Scott. About the certification exams." Her face drained of color before flushing red. "You went through my phone." "What the hell, Lori?" "It was an accident. Your phone was unlocked on the counter. So you decided to read my private messages. God, you're pathetic." She grabbed a glass from the cabinet, slamming it down. "Just because your life is a disaster doesn't give you the right to spy on mine." "This isn't about me," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You and Scott are cheating on professional certification exams and Dad's helping you. Do you understand how serious this is?" Cassandra filled her glass with water, her hand trembling slightly. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I saw the messages, Cassandra. You're getting advance access to test materials. That's fraud." She took a long sip before meeting my eyes. "So what are you going to do? Report us. Destroy Dad's career, ruin my future before it starts. Is that your plan, to make everyone as miserable as you are?" "That's not fair. I'm concerned about what you're doing. It's wrong and you know it." Cassandra laughed bitterly. "Since when are you the moral authority? You're just jealous." "Jealous? Of what?" Everything. She spat. "My relationship with Scott. My career. The fact that Mom and Dad are proud of me. The fact that I'm succeeding where you failed." Her words stung, but I pressed on. "Is that why you started dating Scott, to hurt me?" A slow, cruel smile spread across her face. "Maybe at first. I remembered how devastated you were when you found out he cheated on you. I thought it would be funny to bring him around, watch you squirm. But then it became useful. He needed help with his certification. I needed mentoring for student teaching. Dad needed a department head he could trust. Win, win, win. Except it's cheating, Cassandra. It's wrong. It's how the real world works, Lori. Not everything is your black and white teacher's pet morality. Sometimes you do what you need to get ahead." I stood up, my resolve hardening. "I'm going to have to tell someone. If not the school board, then at least Mom needs to know what Dad's involved in." Cassandra slammed her glass down. "You will not say a word. No one will believe you anyway. It'll just look like you're trying to hurt me out of spite. This isn't about hurting you." "Isn't it?" she interrupted, stepping toward me. "Poor Lori, always the victim. Your husband left you, you lost your job, so now you want to tear down everyone else's happiness. That's not true, and you know it. This is about integrity." "Integrity," she laughed. "Where was your integrity when you slept with Professor Walsh to pass advanced chemistry?" "Yeah, I know about that. Dad knows too." I stared at her in shock. "What are you talking about? That never happened." "But people would believe it if I said it did. Just like they'd believe you're having another breakdown after your divorce. Just like they'd believe you're making up stories about Scott and me to get revenge." Her threat hung in the air between us. I realized then how dangerous my sister could be, how willing she was to destroy my reputation to protect herself. "I'm going to talk to Dad when he gets home," I said finally. "He needs to understand the risk he's taking helping you cheat." Cassandra's face contorted with rage. "You're not talking to anyone." She stormed past me, heading for the stairs. I followed her, unwilling to let this go. "Cassandra, stop. We need to resolve this." "There's nothing to resolve. You're going to keep your mouth shut, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a pathetic, desperate failure you really are." We reached the second-floor landing. Cassandra headed for her bedroom, and I followed close behind. "This isn't about me," I insisted. "This is about right and wrong. What kind of teacher will you be if... She whirled around at her bedroom door. A successful one. Something you couldn't manage. Success built on lies isn't success at all. God, you sound like an after-school special, she sneered. Get out of my face. I'm done talking to you. She entered her room and grabbed the door to slam it. I stepped forward, not ready to end the conversation. Cassandra, please. The door slammed with tremendous force. The decorative glass panel at the top, installed during my parents' renovation years ago, shuddered in its frame. Before I could react, the glass shattered, sending sharp fragments raining down. I instinctively raised my arms to shield my face, stepping backward. My foot caught on the hall runner and I felt myself falling. The last thing I remembered was a sharp pain as my head struck something hard. Then a warm sensation spreading beneath me. Dimly, I heard screams. Cassandra's voice. Oh my God, Lori! Footsteps pounded up the stairs. My mother's gasp. My father saying, Jesus Christ. What happened? Then Cassandra panicked. She fell. She tripped and hit her head on the table. There's so much blood, my mother whispered. We need to call an ambulance, Cassandra said. Then my father's voice, strangely calm. Wait a minute. Let's think about this. Darkness claimed me before I could hear more. Beeping monitors pulled me back to consciousness. White ceiling tiles, antiseptic smell tubes in my arm hospital. My head throbbed with each heartbeat, and speaking required monumental effort. Wah! Happened. I managed my throat raw. A nurse appeared beside me. You're at Cedar Falls Memorial. You had an accident at home. The doctor will be in shortly. Fragments of memory flickered the argument with Cassandra, the shattering glass falling backward. Then my father's voice. Wait, let's think about this. The door opened, and my parents rushed in, followed by a doctor in a white coat. She's awake, Mom announced, her voice too bright. Mrs. Morgan, I'm Dr. Eleanor Wilson. The doctor checked the monitors beside my bed. You've sustained a significant concussion and needed 12 stitches to close the laceration on your scalp. You've been unconscious for several hours. What happened? I asked again, looking at my parents. Dad cleared his throat. You fell down the stairs, sweetheart. Must have tripped on that loose runner we've been meaning to fix. Stairs. That wasn't right. We'd been upstairs by Cassandra's room. No, I said, confusion fogging my thoughts. Cassandra's door. Glass. Mom's hand squeezed mine painfully. You're confused, dear. Very common with concussions. You fell down the stairs. We found you at the bottom. Dr. Wilson looked between us, her expression professional but questioning. Mr. and Mrs. Morgan, I need to examine Lori now. Would you mind stepping out briefly? They hesitated, then Dad nodded. Of course. We'll be right outside. When they left, Dr. Wilson pulled up a chair. Lori, I'm going to ask you some questions to assess your cognitive function, okay? I nodded slightly, wincing at the pain. Do you know what day it is? Thursday. Maybe Friday now. Good. And your full name? Lori Ann Morgan. She continued with basic questions, then paused, her tone shifting. Lori, your injuries include multiple lacerations consistent with glass fragments which we've removed from your scalp. The CT scan shows a linear skull fracture and evidence of impact at the back of your head. Can you tell me what you remember about how you were injured? I tried to organize my thoughts. Fighting with my sister. By her bedroom. She slammed the door, and glass broke. I fell backward. Dr. Wilson made notes. That's consistent with your injuries. The glass fragments and the location of your skull fracture suggest you weren't on stairs when you were injured. A knock interrupted us, and my parents returned this time with Cassandra. Her eyes were red and puffy, her expression devastated. Oh, Lori, she sobbed, rushing to my bedside. I'm so sorry you fell. I should have fixed that runner like Dad asked. I stared at her in confusion. This wasn't right. She was lying. Dr. Wilson stood. Mr. and Mrs. Morgan, I'd like to discuss Lori's scan results with you in the hall. They followed her out, leaving me with Cassandra, who immediately leaned close. Listen to me, she whispered urgently. You fell down the stairs. That's what happened. If anyone finds out we were fighting, Dad could lose his job I'll never teach and it'll destroy this family. Do you understand it was an accident? A terrible accident. But that's not what happened, I protested weakly. It doesn't matter what happened. What matters is what everyone believes happened. Her eyes bored into mine. Mom and Dad need you to stick to the story. I need you to stick to the story. Please, Lori. It was just an accident. The door opened, and my parents returned without the doctor. Mom sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing my hair away from the bandages. Dr. Wilson says you're confused about what happened, she said gently. That's normal with concussions. You fell down the stairs, dear. We heard the crash and found you at the bottom. But I remember. Your mind is playing tricks, Dad interrupted. The brain does that with trauma, fills in gaps with false memories. I looked between their faces, seeing not concern for my well-being, but fear of what I might say. It was the same expression they'd worn when I first woke up. The police might want to talk to you, Dad continued. Standard procedure with head injuries like yours. Just tell them what happened. You tripped on the runner and fell down the stairs. Police, I echoed. Just routine, Mom assured me. Nothing to worry about if we're all clear on what happened. A different nurse entered, checking my IV. I need to take vitals now. Family can come back in 30 minutes. My parents and Cassandra filed out, but not before Dad leaned down and whispered, Remember, Stairs. My superintendent application is being reviewed next week. We can't have any complications. After they left the nurse, her badge read Jessica worked in silence for a moment before asking quietly, Are you comfortable with your family's version of events? I hesitated, unsure what to say. It's just, Jessica continued, adjusting my IV. I've seen injuries like yours before. They don't typically match falling downstairs. The glass fragments the wound pattern. She paused. Dr. Wilson has noted discrepancies in your chart. If there's something you want to tell us, we're here to listen. Before I could respond, the door opened again, and Dr. Wilson returned with a folder of scans. Lori, I want to show you something. She placed an X-ray on a light box. These white specks are glass fragments we removed from your scalp and neck. Their pattern and embedding depth aren't consistent with a fall downstairs. Neither is the fracture angle here. She pointed to another scan. Do you understand what I'm saying? I swallowed hard. You don't believe I fell downstairs. The medical evidence suggests otherwise. She sat down. Lori, I'm required to report suspicious injuries. Based on what I'm seeing and what you told me earlier, I believe something else happened. If someone hurt you intentionally or unintentionally, we need to know. No one hurt me intentionally, I said quickly. It was an accident. My sister slammed her door, the glass panel broke, and I fell backward. Dr. Wilson nodded. That's consistent with your injuries. Why is your family saying you fell downstairs? I closed my eyes, exhausted. Because they're afraid of what will happen if people know the truth. Which is that my perfect little sister has a temper, that my father's precious reputation might be tarnished. Dr. Wilson made notes in my chart. A social worker named Grace will come see you tomorrow. She's here to help, not to cause problems for your family. But Lori, you should know your injuries were severe. The skull fracture, the blood loss. You're fortunate. With impact injuries like yours, people don't always wake up. Her words sank in slowly. I could have died. And my family's first instinct wasn't to get me help. It was to construct a story that protected them. Get some rest, Dr. Wilson said, patting my hand. We'll talk more tomorrow. After she left, I lay in the darkened room, monitors beeping steadily, trying to reconcile what I knew with what my family wanted me to believe. My head throbbed with each thought. They delayed calling for help. They created a cover story. They cared more about appearances than my life. For the first time, I wondered if I'd ever really known my family at all. Grace, the hospital social worker, came the next morning. With her silver bob and grandmother appearance, she seemed harmless, but her questions were pointed. Do you feel safe at home, Lori? I hesitated. Yes, generally. Generally, she raised an eyebrow. This was an accident. My sister didn't mean for the glass to break. Grace nodded. But your family is claiming you fell downstairs. They're worried about how it looks. My dad's a school principal. Appearances matter. More than your health. I had no answer for that. Lori Grace continued. The hospital staff has noted some concerning behavior from your family. They've been monitoring who visits you, checking your phone, and your father attempted to access your medical records, which is a privacy violation. This was news to me. They checked my phone. A nurse observed your mother going through it while you were sleeping. She paused. Is there someone outside your family you'd like us to contact? A friend, perhaps? I thought about it. Most of my friends had scattered after college. Those who remained in Cedar Falls were acquaintances, at best no one I'd trust with this situation. Not really, I admitted. That's okay. We're here to support you. She handed me a card. Call me anytime, day or night. After Grace left, my parents arrived bringing clothes and toiletries. Mom fussed over my bed sheets while Dad stood by the window unusually quiet. The doctor says you might be discharged tomorrow if the swelling continues to decrease, Mom said brightly. Great, I replied, watching her carefully fold and refold the same shirt. Dad cleared his throat. Lori, we need to discuss what you've been telling the medical staff. So they knew. I told them what happened. No, Dad's voice hardened. You told them a confused version that doesn't match what actually happened. You fell down the stairs. Dad, I didn't. I was upstairs when Cassandra slammed her door. The glass broke and I fell backward. You know that's what happened. That's not what happened, he insisted, color rising in his face. You need to correct this misunderstanding immediately. Why? Because you're applying for superintendent. Because it would look bad if people knew Cassandra has a temper. Because it's not true. His voice rose, then immediately dropped when he remembered where we were. Lori, listen to me. Next week the board reviews my application for district superintendent. A position I've worked toward for 15 years. If there's any hint of family dysfunction or violence... Violence, I interrupted. It was an accident. Exactly our point, Mom interjected. An accident that happened when you tripped on the stairs. I can't believe this, I whispered. You're asking me to lie to protect your careers. Dad sat on the edge of the bed, his voice softening. No, we're asking you to help protect this family. Cassandra is devastated. She's nearly finished with her education degree. If this gets reported as a domestic incident, even accidental, it could prevent her from getting certified. And your father's promotion would be in jeopardy, Mom added. In this community, perception is reality. You know that. I looked between them, these people I'd trusted my entire life, now asking me to deny my own experience. The X-rays show glass fragments in my scalp, I said, finally. How would that happen from falling downstairs? Dad waved dismissively. You fell into that glass cabinet in the hallway. It broke your fall but shattered in the process. They'd thought of everything, constructing a story that seemed plausible enough if you didn't look too closely. I need to rest, I said, turning away. My head hurts. Of course, Mom patted my hand. Just remember what we discussed. For the family. After they left, I lay staring at the ceiling, torn between loyalty and truth. My phone chimed with a text from Cassandra. Please don't ruin everything. It was an accident. I'm so sorry. Later that afternoon, Nurse Jessica returned for my vitals. As she worked, she spoke quietly. 10 years ago, my sister pushed me through a plate glass door during an argument. My parents told everyone I slipped. I still have the scars, but the worst damage was knowing my family cared more about appearances than truth. She checked my blood pressure. Just so you know, you're not alone. That evening, Cassandra visited alone. She looked terrible, unwashed hair, swollen eyes, bitten nails. Lori, I'm so sorry, she said, immediately collapsing into the chair beside my bed. I never meant for you to get hurt. I was just so angry. I know I said surprised by her genuine remorse. But you have to understand, she continued, her voice hardening slightly, if people find out what really happened. Everything falls apart. Dad loses his shot at superintendent. My teaching career ends before it begins. All because of one stupid fight. A fight that nearly killed me, I reminded her. She flinched. That's dramatic. It was an accident. The doctor said I'm lucky to be alive. The skull fracture could have been fatal, but it wasn't. Cassandra leaned forward. Look, I know I messed up. I know I've been horrible to you since you came back, but please don't destroy our family over this. Is that what I'd be doing, destroying the family by telling the truth? In this case, yes. She ran her hands through her hair. Dad says they're sending someone from the police department to take a statement. Just stick to the story, please, Lori, for all of us. After she left, an orderly came to take me for another scan. I recognized him immediately, Michael Dawson, a year behind me in high school. We'd worked on the yearbook committee together. Lori Morgan, he said, smiling, as he unlocked my bed wheels. Heard you took a bad fall. How are you feeling? Like my head's been split open, I attempted a smile. How have you been, Michael? Working here while finishing nursing school, he replied, pushing my bed toward the elevator. Night shift pays better and the tuition assistance is decent. As we waited for the elevator, Michael glanced around before leaning closer. Listen, I shouldn't say this, but there's talk among the staff about your case. Your dad was at the nurses' station earlier trying to get them to change some documentation in your chart. Made a big scene when they refused. My stomach dropped. What? Said they misunderstood what you told them, that you were confused from the concussion. Michael's expression grew serious. Lori, I don't know what's going on, but if you need help, I can try to get copies of your records for you. Medical evidence doesn't lie even when people do. Before I could respond, the elevator arrived. Inside, he handed me a folded slip of paper. My number, in case you need anything. That night I couldn't sleep. Fragments of memory kept surfacing: the argument with Cassandra, the shattering glass, the delay before calling an ambulance. Something nagged at me, a memory just out of reach. On impulse, I texted Michael. Did they ever find medical records from my childhood, anything about previous injuries? His response came quickly. Give me an hour. True to his word, Michael appeared during the night shift change, slipping into my room with a folder. Had to call in a favor from medical records, he explained, handing it over. Found something interesting. Multiple ER visits during your childhood, all documented as accidental injuries. 3 involved Cassandra. Each time your parents declined further evaluation or reporting. I opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were records of incidents I'd forgotten or repressed. Age 8, broken wrist after falling from the playset when Cassandra allegedly bumped me accidentally. Age 12, concussion after tripping when Cassandra supposedly startled me. Age 15, sprained ankle after slipping on stairs. Cassandra had allegedly just mopped without warning me. A pattern clear as day. Cassandra hurt me accidentally or otherwise, and my parents covered it up every time. There's more, Michael said quietly. Your current doctor, Dr. Wilson, made notes questioning the delay in seeking treatment for your injury. Your father called 911 nearly 40 minutes after the estimated time of injury based on blood coagulation at the scene. 40 minutes. While I lay bleeding, they were constructing their story, worrying about appearances rather than my life. Thank you, I whispered, clutching the folder. This helps more than you know. After Michael left, I lay awake, pieces fitting together. This wasn't about one accident. It was a family pattern of denial and protection, not of me, but of their image of Cassandra, of their careers. For my entire life, I'd been the one expected to stay quiet, to accept, to preserve the family peace at my own expense. For the first time, I wondered if going home after discharge was safe. Not because I feared Cassandra would hurt me intentionally, but because I now understood how completely my family would sacrifice my well-being to protect themselves. The realization was more painful than any physical injury. But with pain came clarity. I deserved better. And maybe finally standing up for the truth would help us all. Detective Samantha Reeves arrived the next morning, her badge glinting on her belt as she pulled a chair beside my bed. She had kind eyes that belied her direct manner. Miss Morgan, I'm here to take your statement regarding the incident that caused your injuries. Are you feeling up to talking? I nodded, wincing slightly at the movement. Good. Why don't you tell me what happened in your own words? I hesitated, the weight of my family's expectations pressing against my chest. The folder Michael had given me sat hidden in my bedside drawer. Evidence of a pattern spanning decades. Miss Morgan, Detective Reeves prompted. I was upstairs. I began slowly. My sister Cassandra and I were arguing. She went into her bedroom and slammed the door. The decorative glass panel at the top of the door shattered. I fell backward, hit my head on the antique table in the hallway, and lost consciousness. Detective Reeves made notes. That conflicts with the account your parents provided. They stated you fell down the stairs after tripping on a runner. That's not what happened. And the argument with your sister, what was that about? Another moment of hesitation. Did I tell her everything, including the certification fraud? That felt like a separate issue, yet it was the catalyst for all that followed. Family tensions, I said finally. I recently moved back home after my divorce. Cassandra resented having me there. Things escalated. I see. She studied me carefully. Miss Morgan, the medical report indicates your injuries are consistent with your version of events, not with falling downstairs. There's also a noted delay between your estimated time of injury and when emergency services were called. Can you explain that? I was unconscious. But I remember hearing my father say, "Wait, let's think about this," after they found me. Her eyebrows raised slightly. They delayed getting you medical attention. I believe they were discussing what to tell people before calling an ambulance. And why would they do that? I sighed. My father is principal at Cedar Falls High. He's applying for district superintendent. My sister is completing her education degree. They're worried how it would look if people knew what really happened. Detective Reeves nodded thoughtfully. Miss Morgan, are you afraid of your sister or your parents? Not afraid exactly, but I don't trust them to put my well-being first. Has anything like this happened before? I thought about the medical records in my drawer. Yes. There's a pattern of Cassandra being involved in my accidents throughout childhood. My parents always downplayed or covered them up. The detective's expression remained neutral, but I sensed her concern. I'd like to see those records if possible. I can provide copies. We talked for another 30 minutes, covering my relationship with my family, the events leading up to the injury, and my concerns about returning home. When she stood to leave, Detective Reeves handed me her card. Call me directly if you have any concerns, or remember additional details. And Miss Morgan, consider your options carefully before going back to that house. After she left, I called Grace, the social worker. I need help finding somewhere to stay after discharge. I'm glad you called, Grace replied. We can arrange short-term housing through our patient advocacy program. That afternoon, my phone began filling with text messages from my father. What did you tell the detective? Call me immediately. Your mother is distraught. I silenced the notifications, focusing instead on my recovery plan with the physical therapist who had come to evaluate me. The head injury had affected my balance, and I would need outpatient therapy for several weeks. Just as the therapist was leaving, my father burst into the room, face flushed with anger. What have you done? He demanded. The police just called me in for questioning. Dad, please calm down. Calm down. You've destroyed everything with your lies. Detective Reeves said you claimed we delayed getting you medical help, that we covered up previous incidents. Where would she get such ideas? From me, I admitted, because they're true. He stared at me in disbelief. After everything we've done for you, taking you in after your failed marriage, supporting you. Stop, I interrupted. This isn't about gratitude, it's about the truth. I nearly died, Dad. And your first concern wasn't my life, it was how my injury would affect your career. That's not fair. We were in shock. You told them to wait before calling 911. You created a story about stairs. You've been trying to manipulate my medical records. How is any of that looking out for me? A nurse appeared in the doorway. Is everything all right in here? My father composed himself, instantly smoothing his tie. Fine, thank you. Just a family discussion. Mr. Morgan, the nurse, said firmly, your daughter needs rest. I'm going to have to ask you to continue this conversation another time. After he left, I received a text from Michael, your father's, in the administrative office, making complaints about Dr. Wilson and the nursing staff, throwing around school board connections. That evening, Cassandra visited again, this time with Mom. They played good cop divided by bad cop. Mom tearfully begging me to reconsider my statement, Cassandra alternating between apologies and subtle threats. Do you really want to be responsible for destroying Dad's career? Cassandra asked. For ruining my future, all because of an accident. This isn't just about the accident, I replied. It's about the cover-up. About the pattern of protecting you at my expense. That's not true, Mom protested. We've always loved you both equally. Then why has Cassandra always been allowed to hurt me without consequences? Why have you always protected her reputation over my safety? Mom had no answer. You know, Cassandra said, her voice turning cold, people already think you're unstable after your divorce. Derek told Scott all about your emotional problems, how you'd make things up when you felt neglected. If this turns into your word against ours, the threat hung in the air. I felt a familiar tightening in my chest, the anxiety that had plagued me throughout my marriage to Derek, who'd been a master at making me doubt my own perceptions. Get out, I said quietly. Both of you, now. After they left, I pulled out my phone and texted Michael need one more favor. The next morning, Dr. Wilson informed me I was being discharged. We've arranged a place for you to stay through our patient advocacy program. Grace will help with the details. Thank you, I said, relieved. For everything. You're making the right choice, she assured me. Your recovery needs to be your priority now, not managing family dynamics. As I was preparing to leave, Michael slipped into my room one last time. Got what you asked for, he said, handing me a USB drive. Security footage from the hallway outside your room. Shows your family going through your phone, your dad trying to access your chart, and their argument with Dr. Wilson when she refused to change your diagnosis. Technically, I could get fired for this, but... He shrugged. Sometimes doing the right thing matters more. I impulsively hugged him. Thank you. I won't forget this. Just get better, he replied. And maybe grab coffee sometime when all this is over. For the first time in days, I smiled genuinely. I'd like that. That afternoon, Detective Reeves called. Miss Morgan, we've completed interviews with your family members. There are inconsistencies in their statements. Additionally, we've spoken with two of your sister's former college roommates. Both reported incidents involving your sister's temper, including one that resulted in property damage. I didn't know about that, I admitted. There's more, she continued. A teacher at your father's school, Scott Jenkins, came forward with recordings of conversations between himself, your sister, and your father regarding certification exams. Apparently, he's been keeping them as insurance. My breath caught. Recordings. Yes. He claims your father and sister were planning to blame you if the certification fraud ever came to light. They discussed ways to question your credibility, including spreading rumors about your mental health. The betrayal cut deep. Not just covering up an accident, but actively planning to destroy my reputation to save themselves. What happens now, I asked. The district attorney will review everything and determine whether charges are appropriate. In the meantime, we've referred the certification matter to the State Education Board. I wanted you to know before it becomes public. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the hospital bed, medical discharge papers in hand, facing the hardest decision of my life: proceed with the truth and watch my family face consequences, or cave to their pressure and continue the cycle of denial that had shaped our relationships for decades. In that moment, I realized the truth wasn't just about justice for me. It was about breaking a pattern that had harmed us all: my sister never learning accountability, my parents enabling dishonesty, me accepting mistreatment as normal. Sometimes true love means allowing people to face the natural consequences of their actions. With that clarity, I texted my father, I'm telling the complete truth about what happened. Not to hurt you, but because it's time our family started healing through honesty instead of appearance. His response was immediate and chilling. You'll regret this decision for the rest of your life. Perhaps. But for the first time in years, I felt completely certain I was doing the right thing for all of us. The following week passed in a blur of police statements, medical follow-ups, and adjusting to life in the patient advocacy program's temporary housing, a small apartment near the hospital. Grace checked on me daily, helping navigate the practical aspects of my suddenly upended life. My balance was improving, but headaches still plagued me, and the emotional toll was perhaps even greater than the physical. On Friday, Detective Reeves called to inform me the district attorney had decided to pursue charges against my father for obstruction and filing a false police report. The school board had placed him on administrative leave, pending investigation of both the incident and the certification fraud allegations. Cassandra's university had begun a review of her student status. How are you holding up? Detective Reeves asked. Processing, I admitted. Part of me feels guilty for the fallout. That's normal, she assured me. But remember, you didn't create this situation. You're just refusing to perpetuate the lies. That evening, I received a text from my mother, the first communication since I'd left the hospital. We need to talk. All of us. Tomorrow at 2. The house. I showed the message to Grace during her visit the next morning. Are you comfortable with that? She asked. You don't have to go. I think I need to, I replied. For closure, if nothing else. Consider having someone with you. Detective Reeves, perhaps. I nodded. Good idea. When I arrived at my parents' house the next day, Detective Reeves waited in her car outside, close enough to intervene if needed, but giving me space to handle this on my own. Walking up the familiar driveway felt surreal, like returning to a place I'd only dreamed about rather than lived in for years of my life. Mom answered the door, her appearance shocking me. In just a week, she seemed to have aged years. Hair uncombed, clothes, wrinkled dark circles under her eyes. Lori, she said, her voice flat. Come in. Dad and Cassandra waited in the living room. Dad sat rigid in his armchair while Cassandra perched on the couch, picking at her nails. The tension was palpable. Thank you for coming, Dad said formally, as though addressing a stranger. We wanted to meet face to face. I thought that would be best. I agreed, sitting in a chair opposite them, consciously choosing not to take a place on the couch beside Cassandra. The district attorney called this morning, Dad continued. I've been offered a plea deal. Misdemeanor charges, probation resignation from my position, surrender of my administrative credentials. In exchange for testimony about the certification fraud. I nodded, unsure what to say. Cassandra has been suspended from her program, Mom added. They're conducting an academic review. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. I never wanted this. Didn't you? Cassandra snapped. You could have just gone along with the story. None of this had to happen. That's not fair, I replied. I nearly died, Cassandra. The doctors said if the impact had been slightly different, I might never have woken up. And instead of getting me immediate help, you all constructed a cover story. We were protecting the family, Dad insisted. No. You were protecting yourselves, your careers, your reputations. I took a deep breath. Do you know what hurts the most? I found my childhood medical records. All those accidents involving Cassandra, you covered those up too. My entire life you've taught her that her actions don't have consequences if they involve hurting me. Mom began to cry silently, but Dad's expression hardened. So this is revenge, he asked. For childhood squabbles. This isn't about revenge. It's about finally breaking a cycle that's damaged all of us. Look at us. We're so focused on appearing perfect that we've forgotten how to actually care for each other. That's not family. That's a performance. Cassandra stood abruptly. Easy for you to say. You're not the one losing everything. I lost plenty, I countered. My safety in this home. My trust in the people who should have protected me. And apparently my sister and parents were planning to destroy my reputation if the certification fraud was discovered. Scott turned over recordings of your conversations about it. The color drained from Dad's face. He what? He recorded you discussing how to blame me if the cheating was discovered. How you'd question my mental stability, suggest I was making accusations out of jealousy. That manipulative bastard, Dad muttered. I knew he couldn't be trusted. That's what you focus on. Not that you were planning to sacrifice me to save yourselves. You don't understand the pressure we've been under, Mom interjected. Your father's worked his entire career for the superintendent position. Cassandra's followed in his footsteps. Everything we've built was built on lies I finished. And sooner or later, lies collapse. We sat in heavy silence until Cassandra spoke again, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. I really am sorry you got hurt, Lori. I was so angry, but I never meant for the glass to break. When I saw you lying there, she trailed off, tears streaming down her face. I was terrified. I believe you, I said gently. I don't think you meant for it to happen. But Cassandra, this isn't just about the accident. It's about what came after. It's about the pattern we've all been trapped in for years. So what now, Dad asked, defeat evident in his voice. You've made your point. Our lives are in shambles. What more do you want? I don't want anything more, I replied honestly. I just want the truth to be acknowledged. I want us to stop pretending. Maybe then we can start actually healing instead of just covering up the wounds. Your father will lose his career, Mom said bitterly. Is that healing? Actions have consequences, Mom. For everyone. Even in our family. Dad stood suddenly. I think you should leave. You've said your piece, made your choices. There's nothing more to discuss. I rose as well, surprisingly calm. I hope someday you'll understand this wasn't about hurting you. It was about finally standing up for myself, and maybe even for all of us in the long run. As I turned to go, Cassandra called after me. Lori, wait. She approached hesitantly, then thrust a small box into my hands. I found this while cleaning out my room. It's yours. I took it when we were kids. I'm sorry. Inside was a small silver locket our grandmother had given me for my 10th birthday, a treasured possession I'd thought lost forever. Thank you, I whispered, clutching it tightly. Walking out of that house, I felt both heavier and lighter, burdened by the painful reality of our broken family, yet freed from the obligation to maintain the facade we'd all hidden behind for so long. Detective Reeves was waiting, concern evident on her face. Everything okay? No, I admitted. But maybe someday it will be. As we drove away, I realized something profound. Sometimes love means having the courage to break destructive patterns even when it hurts. Sometimes the truest form of family loyalty isn't protecting each other from consequences, but holding each other accountable so we can become better. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in years I was facing it with complete honesty, both with myself and with the world. And in that truth, painful as it was, lay the first seeds of genuine healing. 1 year later, I stood at the podium scanning the audience of healthcare professionals gathered for the annual Cedar County Medical Center Conference on recognizing and responding to family violence. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the microphone. My name is Lori Morgan, I began. Last year, I nearly died from a head injury that occurred during a family conflict. The X-rays that ultimately revealed what really happened didn't just show glass fragments and a skull fracture, they exposed patterns of denial and enabling that had shaped my family for decades. The journey to this moment had been difficult, but transformative. After my confrontation with my family, I'd thrown myself into recovery, both physical and emotional. The patient advocacy program had connected me with a support group for survivors of family violence, where I'd finally understood that my experience, while unique in its details, followed patterns familiar to many. I continued my speech, recounting how the medical professionals who treated me had recognized discrepancies in my family's story, documented evidence carefully, and created a safe space for me to tell the truth. In doing so, they didn't just treat my physical injuries. They helped me break free from dynamics that had diminished me my entire life. They showed me that I deserved better. That truth matters. That appearances aren't worth sacrificing safety and well-being. The fallout from my decision to tell the truth had been significant. My father had accepted the plea deal, surrendering his credentials and receiving probation. He now worked in educational consulting, a step down in prestige and salary, but still utilizing his experience. The certification fraud investigation had led to systemic changes in testing procedures statewide. Cassandra had been suspended from her program for a semester and required to complete ethics training and counseling. To everyone's surprise, she'd embraced the therapy confronting issues that had influenced her behavior for years. She'd recently returned to a different university to complete her degree with a new focus on special education. My mother had perhaps struggled the most, her identity so intertwined with the family's perfect image that its shattering left her adrift. She'd eventually sought counseling herself and was slowly rebuilding her sense of self beyond appearances. Our relationships remained complicated. We communicated sporadically, mostly through text messages and occasional brief visits. The trust that had been broken would take years to rebuild if it ever could be fully. But there was a new honesty in our interactions, a dropping of pretenses that felt like the foundation for something healthier, even if different from before. As for me, I'd found unexpected purpose in my experience. My background in education, combined with my personal story, had led to a position with a nonprofit organization that trained healthcare and educational professionals to recognize signs of family dynamics that might endanger children, young adults. The X-rays that day revealed more than just physical trauma, I told the audience. They exposed the truth when others tried to hide it. In your work, you may be the only ones willing to see and document evidence that contradicts what you're being told. That role is sacred. You might be the first person who shows a patient that their reality matters, that their experience is valid, that they deserve protection. I glanced toward the back of the room where Michael sat, offering an encouraging smile. Our coffee after my hospital discharge had led to friendship, then dating, and now a relationship built on mutual respect and complete honesty, something I'd never fully experienced before. Near him sat Dr. Wilson and Nurse Jessica, who had become mentors and supporters in my new career path. Detective Reeves had planned to attend, but had been called to testify in court. She'd sent flowers with a note of encouragement instead. When I left the hospital, I continued. I had no idea what the future held. I only knew I couldn't go back to denying my own experiences to protect others from consequences they deserved. That decision cost me relationship security and my sense of family as I'd known it. But it gave me something far more valuable, my voice. My truth. My power to choose a different path. I held up one of my x-rays, the glass fragments clearly visible as white specks against the gray outline of my skull. Evidence doesn't lie, even when people do. The patterns are there if we're willing to look for them. The truth is there if we're brave enough to acknowledge it. Sometimes healing begins not when we cover wounds, but when we finally expose them to the light. After my speech during the reception, a young resident approached me. Your story really affected me, she said quietly. I grew up in a family a lot like yours. Appearances mattered more than anything. I'm still unlearning those patterns. It's a journey, I told her, but worth every difficult step. Later that evening, I received a text message that made my heart stop momentarily. It was from Cassandra Saw. Your speech was today. Hope it went well. I'm learning so much in therapy about why I acted the way I did. Not excuses, just understanding. Maybe someday we can talk more about it. Miss you, sis. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet. But it was acknowledgement of truth, of harm caused of hope for something better. And that I'd learned was where healing begins. As Michael drove us home, I fingered the silver locket around my neck, the one Cassandra had returned that day. Inside was a tiny photograph of our family from years ago, all smiling at a summer picnic. Not because we were performing happiness for others, but because in that moment we'd actually felt it. You okay? Michael asked, noticing my silence. Yes, I replied, surprising myself with how true it felt. I really am. The road ahead would have its challenges. Rebuilding trust with my family, if possible at all, would take years. But for the first time we were relating to each other as real people, not as roles in a performance of perfection. The masks had fallen. The truth had emerged. And in that truth, painful as it was, lay our only chance for genuine healing. The x-rays had revealed more than just glass fragments embedded in my skull. They had exposed the fragments of truth we'd all been avoiding for decades. And sometimes being broken open is the only way to finally begin to heal. What experiences have you had with family dynamics, where appearances mattered more than reality? Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between loyalty and truth? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their truth matters. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage on your own path to authenticity.